It's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by a romping 10-12 lengths.
So, hello and welcome back to episode number 3 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. It's myself and the Ronan Groome. Ronan, what a response to last week's video. It's really ramping up now and we've so much to discuss. First section of the show, prospect review. And you can see on screen, Ronan, we've taken, as usual, 3 performances each. And so that's 6 in total. We've star rated them. Let's rattle through your 3.
We've 4 this week, don't you? You're underselling it a bit.
We have 4 is right. You got me out already. Go for it.
Yeah, well, let's start with the maybe in chronological order then with the great and mighty John Bon, who was, I think we both agree, Basil, he was foot perfect at, where did he make his debut? Warwick. And, you know, it's been a talking point since, the 2-to-1 price for the Arkle. And let's just talk about his performance quickly first. I thought he jumped really well, travelled beautifully, kicked on lovely from a good horse in Montmoral. I know Nichols said, or Harry Cobden came out after the race and suggested that there was a lot more to come from him fitness-wise, and West Cork was back in 3rd, but you had to love the way John Bon did it. Can't crap the performance, jumping was brilliant, and you know, you'd be pretty confident he's going to be a better chaser than he was a hurdler, which was what Duvan did, obviously, and that's his full brother. And for Cheltenham now, you know, look, let's just talk about the price. He's 2-to-1. I think my colleague, our press room colleague, David Jennings, was writing about this on Saturday and saying it's the worst price he's ever seen. I don't know. I've seen a lot worse prices, to be honest. 2-to-1.
What did you give the performance star rating wise?
I give him a close to a 5 out of 5 first time out now. I know I'd probably go 4 out of 5 just because the form. I'm slightly taken aback by the Montmoral comments. I thought that he'd be more ready than he was. The suggestion that there's a lot more to come from him fitness-wise, that just has me. But for what John Bon did himself, I thought he was pretty good. So I go 4 out of 5 for John Bon. The price, like personally, it's not for me. 2-to-1 at this point in the year, I wouldn't be touching that.
That's very short run, and we haven't seen, you know, Willie Mullins. How many Arkles has he won in the last decade? You're not going to, you know, he could have 3 or 4. He's not afraid to run a couple in there. John Bon, very good, obviously. 2-to-1 as an Ante-Post price is pretty chronic.
Yeah, it's not like that's Ante-Post betting now. Like that's more of a function of the Cheltenham Festival, I guess. With the races, there's 3 different races, Grade 1 races for novices now. If you count the National Hunt Chase, obviously that's another race for novices. They just get split up so easily. You'll anticipate that John Bon's going to go there unbeaten. He'll have a couple of 1s next to his name. Is
probably have 3 1s, will he?
Yeah, where he'll go to, you know, another place. Where did Henderson say go? I actually can't recall where what he said the plan was, but I presume he'll have 2 more starts before Cheltenham.
It's King Henry VIII.
King Henry VIII, and yeah, and look, I don't know. I was looking at Oddschecker and I saw that it's clearly a glitch, but one firm had 4-to-1 up, and I was just asking myself, would I back him a 4-to-1? Just out loud, I probably would, to be honest, but 2-to-1 is just too short at this point. As you said, Willie's got Sir Gerhard. He's got, you know, probably El Fabiolo possibly to come out.
Dysart Dynamo, you're forgetting.
Dysart Dynamo, you know, Banbridge was pretty good. We discussed him on the last podcast over the 2 miles. So, look, 2-to-1 not for me, but it might be for some other people. I presume a lot of people are on at nice prices and they're in a good position now. We'll move on to Tamuras, who I was quite impressed with at Haydock. I thought he did it really well. You'd love the way he came back on the bridle just before the second last there. I always think that's a really good sign of a good horse. He was just getting pushed along a bit by Harry Cobden and came back on the bridle pretty.
Do that again.
Just getting a little wakey uppy there, and came back on the bridle. Then he went from that to back into that again. I love seeing that now. Yeah. He just kind of moved clear then from
star rating.
Yeah, I give him. I thought he was good now. Yeah, I give him a 4 out of 5. Maybe 4 out of 5 is quite tight. If we were doing out of 10, I give him a 7 out of 10. Put it that way. So 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, you can give half stars here. We're not going to
3.5
stars. Right. Okay, go on. What's the next
one? The point with him is he goes for the Talworth hurdle next. I believe it's Sandown. So that's a Grade 1. He's likely going to be close to the top of the bending for that. I see he's a general kind of 25-to-1, 20-to-1 shot for the Supreme. That's not a bad price. Considering what he did there, he'd beat a horse called Sizing Potsy there. He'd be useful enough over fences here before he went over to David Pipe, and he won by street up in Scotland before he ran in that grade 2 there at Haydock. So that's not bad form at all from Tamuris, and more to come. And the Nichols thinks to be better with a bigger test of Sanima as well. So 25 to 1 for the Supreme, I didn't think was the worst price.
Nicely.
We'll go on then to Hitman on the same card. Now,
he was good.
He's good, yeah. He did get his own way in front, but he travelled well, travelled beautifully. And Nichols is stone mad about him to run him in the King George, even though he has Brave Man's Game. And I think that's just interesting, you know. I wanted to bring in another horse here that also ran last week, if you might let me, Basil, Tornado Flyer, because I know you're going to talk about Blue Lord and you like him a lot, but in the context of the King George, I thought Tornado Flyer ran a big race down in Clonmel in the Clonmel Oil Chase, and I was just looking at the prices and I was wondering to myself, Hitman's 5 to 1 now for the King George after Haydock, and Tornado Flyer's 8 to 1. Which one would you rather be on? I have to say, I'd rather be on the Mullins horse here, Tornado Flyer. I thought he ran a huge race in the Clonmel Oil, considering he had to make the running. That wouldn't have been his style at all. He didn't go that fast. Over 2.5 miles. It's probably on the sharp side for him now. I thought he ran as well as he did last year when he ran 5th or 4th in the John Durkin by running 2nd to Blue Lord there and nearly closing him down at the line. I thought that was a huge run. Like, I love the King George for horses that come back and win it again. There's been 13, I wrote down, there's 13 horses that won back-to-back King Georges, or won the King George for a consecutive time since 1972, and 5 since this millennium. I'll quickly do a little quiz question with you, Basil. I'll give you a point for everyone you get right. Can you name all 5 horses who have won the King George more than once since the millennium?
Silviniaco Conti.
Correct.
Cato Star.
Correct.
Clan de Zobo.
Yes.
Did Q Card win it once?
Yes.
Did he win it twice?
He didn't.
He didn't.
Go back to the start of the millennium.
Oh, I don't know. Tell me. Go for it. Come on.
Kicking King won it twice, and Long Run came back to win it again.
I was going to say, did Long Run come back and win it a second time? Okay.
The point being, it's a race that's really suits horses that have proven themselves, just like Cheltenham, I suppose. But Kempton is a flat 3 miles. It's a race that really suits horses. Obviously, Brave Man Game is won over the course and distance. He won the Cato Star, but Tornado Flyer was really eye-catch winner of the race last season. Was given a brilliant ride by Danny Mullins.
So you're giving us the forecast for the King George, Tornado Flyer to win and Hitman to finish seconds. I'd be all over Hitman.
Possibly, yeah, but Hitman, my point being with Hitman is the reason I prefer Tornado Flyer at 8 to 1 is that Hitman needs to go and prove himself over 3 miles and over that type of trip. So for me, Tornado Flyer out of those two.
The way he jumped the last run, I mean, he obviously was over 2.5 miles, soft ground, no problem to him whatsoever. This is a horse that's really, really improving. Now, I don't want to put this on him, right? But the way he races, the way he just lobs along over 2.5 miles, he's natural pace. He jumps like an absolute stag. Does he have shades of Cato Star about him with the noseband?
Yeah.
Is that and Cato Star in his early stages?
He's coming up from 2 miles. Yeah, he's coming.
Nichols absolutely loves him. He's only a 6-year-old. I would give this fella a big chance. I know, for example, if the King George is run tomorrow, and those are the prices, I would have a play on Hitman. Obviously, he has to go and prove it, but I think he's loads of talent, Hitman. Officially rated 160. Obviously, he's a lot to find. I'm at this point in time, I'm very much in the Hitman camp for King George. Now that Alamo has ruled out, I'd be taking on Brave Man's Game every day of the week. I just can't have it. Can't have it.
Yeah, I'd probably take.
So what's Star rate? Like, obviously in behind,
over.
Like obviously he's beaten Manila Drama in behind, just to kind of pick up on Hitman. Erin River, I think he's a nice horse. He finished second, obviously. Manila Drama is a good yardstick. As a novice chaser last season, he's going to achieve a lot better than his official rating at the moment of 145. Hitman in this particular contest, obviously off levels, but he was doing his best work at the end. I mean, did you see how easy he hit the line, stepping up to 3 miles? That's what I cannot wait to see with Hitman. He jumps, he travels, he's ground versatile. Probably softer ground would suit him, and I think a track like Kempton is also going to suit. So we'll see how it goes. He's probably priced accordingly, but as I said, if the race is run tomorrow, I'm very much in the Hitman camp. What are you giving him for his performance in terms of rating?
Yeah, I give him a 4 out of 5. Yeah, I thought he was good.
4 out of 5. Brilliant. Obviously, he's a long way to go to reach Kato Star's standards, but it just reminds me the way he gallops, the way he jumps, the way he travels through his races. He's only a 6-year-old. Just bear that in mind. We won't see the best of Hitman for another 2 years.
Yeah. Nichols was saying that as well. They've been patient with him despite the fact he's already rated 160.
I know that's a phrase, by the way, in horse race, especially when it comes to these chaser. He's going to be a better horse next year, but Hitman genuinely is going to peak at 8 years of age. So whatever he does in the next 12 months, he's going to be a better horse in the following season. But so that's my view of it. He can still take King George along the way.
Yeah. No, I think he's interesting. I'd take him over Braveman's Game at his price with Hitman. I'd take Hitman. I'd just take Tornado Flare at 8-1 if you're giving me a choice.
That was a super run by Tornado Flare. We'll come on to Blue Lord. Fourth horse.
Yeah, State Man. Quickly on him. I thought he was grand. Nothing showy. Nothing really get you jumping out of your seat. I thought he could have jumped a little better, but when he was asked, he travelled well into the race and he went away in the style of a decent horse that's made his step up to grade 1 level comfortably enough. He's been a good yardstick, I guess, in Sharjah. You can set your clock by him, by what he does at Leopardstown, Sharjah, and he looks probably as good as ever. Previous winner of the race, and State Man has beat him comfortably. A 3 out of 5 for me, I have to say. I think there'll be bigger tests to come with State Man. Possibly he'd be better when he gets to go a bit quicker as well. He's obviously got the course and distance win at Cheltenham as well through the county hurdle, so that is a plus for his profile. He's general 6-1 shot for the champion hurdle now. That wouldn't make any appeal to me. I couldn't have him that close to Honeysuckle price wise. So I'd much prefer the mare at those current prices.
Super.
But yeah, State Man grand, but nothing amazing.
Okay. Certainly wouldn't have him at this point in time to be beaten out of the top 2 at the market. Obviously, it was disappointing not to see Constitution here. We're not going to open up that debate. We might discuss it at the end. My 4 performances to have a look at with a review, I suppose, to Cheltenham or Spring Festivals. Jerry Calam. This day last week, so Tuesday at Fairyhouse. The ground was soft. He's 5 from 5 now on the race course, this Jerry Calam, having transferred to Gordon Elliott from, of course, Colombo after winning the point-to-point. Soft ground is this fella's bag. There was a lot of people, obviously, there's a couple in the comments. I think Darren Harper has big prices for Spring Festivals. I don't see it just yet with Jerry Calam. They went slow early, which is probably a positive for him because he obviously is a stayer. 3 mile plus long term is going to be where this lad is seen at his best on soft ground. They went slow early. He was okay over his fences. He was decent. As chase debuts go, obviously he's won a point to point, so he's going to be well schooled coming from Colombo's yard. Careful at 1 or 2. Look, his jumper was grand. Obviously, stepping up and trip is going to be his bag. Put it to bed from the back of the last nicely. I'd love to see him in a battle, though. Jerry Calam. I'm not sure in a battle. And I'm also not sure if he's grade 1 standard when it comes to the spring. I think it was mentioned for him Limerick at Christmas. And what's going to be absolutely bottomless ground. That could be his day this season. I couldn't be having him now just at the moment for Spring Festival. Just mentioning Gordon Elliott in the novice chase division. Obviously, the Drinmore's on the horizon. You now have obviously Mighty Potter, Hollow Games, Jerry Calam,
Three Stripe Life.
So the 4 of those, how do we rank those? For me, I've no doubt about which horse I was most impressed with in terms of chasing debuts. That was Hollow Games at Navan. That was a good race, and I thought he over a trip too short from on ground, it probably wasn't ideal. I'd rank probably Hollow Games' chase performance at the top of that list. Mighty Potter, obviously absolutely loved the horse. We've mentioned him how many times on last year's show. We had him in the challenge here, and he was in the horses to follow for the year. Could be absolutely anything. But similar to Bob Ollinger last year, I wasn't impressed with his chasing debut. So he's going to have to, and he may well, but I wouldn't be getting carried away just yet when it comes to Mighty Potter as a novice chaser for this season. Jerry Calam, I'm going to give him a 3-star rating for his performance. It was grand, but he didn't exactly blow me away. In the same colours, Robcor obviously have acquired Absolute Notions. We moved to Saturday. novice hurdle. I think the front two were quite nice. The front three horses could be nice horses. Obviously, they had the Maneer horse as well. For Joseph O'Brien in behind the front two. Deep Cave was we're going to come to our tracker horses, our eye catchers. He was certainly one. I think that's a nice horse for Henry de Bromhead. Absolute Notions. Turned in, he hit a flat spot, jumped nicely. But I think Gordon has used this race in the past. Commander of Fleet won it in 2018 before going on to a Bartlett. Obviously, the Rob Corr have a connection. Well, obviously, Bob Ollinger won the Ballymore. I don't know if this horse is this standard. I've given him a 3-star performance. Jumped nice. I impressed the way he battled back after being headed. He hit a flat spot from just after the second last. But Absolute Notions for me, I would see him more as a stayer, not a Ballymore horse. I know we said that about American Mike. I just wonder would they take that statement back about American Mike. I give him one more chance to see could he potentially shape up into a Ballymore horse. Gordon obviously stacked in that division, but for me, Absolute Notions would be more of a staying type. Love the second horse though. Deep Cave was only his first start on a race course, having won a point to point, and won a point to point by 6 lengths, beating Proper 12. And I know Chris Gordon really likes that horse. Hasn't won a bumper yet, so that's one for the tracker. Proper 12. But the way he travelled into the race, I think Deep Cave could potentially be the best horse to come out of that race. He might have just blew up. Ran an absolute super race. On debut for Henry de Bromhead. On to Blue Lord, giving him a 4-star rating. You mentioned Tornado Flyer. Absolutely, I would mark that performance up. A small field, but I thought this was a really good race. Tornado Flyer made this a really good test. And considering they went hard and how Blue Lord, obviously, this was his first try at 2.5 mile over fences, which was an interesting, watch, having been obviously a leading Arkle contender last season. The way he finished out his race after watch back the race, he pulled very, very hard early on in the race, and they did go hard. So it wasn't as if they went slow. Brilliant ride by Paul Town. It got him settled down the back, jumped lovely. And I think 2.5 miles is going to be more his bag. Obviously, Allaho up in the air. What's going to happen there? Did we see the best Blue Lord at Cheltenham last year? I'm not so sure we did. I was absolutely all over him for the Arkle. I think at the top level this season, obviously 2.5 mile, I think is going to, he's not getting near an Urgemine in a Queen Mother Champion chase. Genuinely, I'm not just saying that, but he's not. I think this is a really good horse for 2.5 for intermediate trips this season, and I'd mark that performance. Love the way he battled as well, and to get the better of a Tornado Flyer, I thought was a really good performance. I'm giving that a 4, and I don't know how you feel about this because we haven't discussed it, but Protectorate, I thought this was a genuine 5-star performance. And I think look at through the lines. You mentioned Bristol, my core specialist. He was the 11-year-old. Once again, on that ground, he didn't hang about. Take a Plutard aside. Eldorado Wallen was beaten 11 lengths in this contest. He's probably stepped forward, Eldorado Wallen. I think he's ran his race. He was given £3 to Brave Man's Game and was only beaten 3 lengths. He's what price favourite for the King George. Look at Protectorate, what he's done here. Travel. He's obviously now fairly wound up for the race. Couldn't get over the mountain. In the comments after the race, Dan Skelton kept talking. The Skeltons kept talking about how this fella has got bigger and stronger. He was obviously laid out for the race, but make no mistake about it, this fella is a Gold Cup contender this season. By Santa Sand, if you got soft ground in a Gold Cup, if you got genuine soft ground in a Gold Cup, I think this fella's a real lively player. Has course form. He's won at Cheltenham in the past. To my knowledge, he's definitely run well at Cheltenham in the past. Bristol LeMay set a really good pace in this contest. Eldorado Allen has been well. What I loved the most about this performance was how he jumped, how he travelled, and how he hit the line. When he got a smack, he got a crack between 2 and 1 out, and he literally just took off. This was a really good display. I'm giving it a 5. Bring it on that quickly before we move on.
I thought he was good. I thought he's a horse that will be... the horse will be underrated, I'd imagine, just through his career because of possibly his soft ground, possibly him being the only British kind of chaser that's was around last year and kind of making any sort of stand against the Irish where people just couldn't have him, I guess, in the Gold Cup, and people kind of tend to remember that sort of thing. I'd agree with you. I thought he was good. I'd probably be less on the form of the race with Plutard. running, just obviously not running any sort of race at all.
You were down in Henry's. What's the update there?
Yeah, they can't figure it out really. They it's a head scratcher. The horse came home fine, no problems, doing all the tests. They were still doing tests there on Monday morning, and still Henry had to hear back from what the vets were going to say. So maybe something will come out in the next 2 days, but it's a real head scratcher. You'd be worried for him. Like, you're going out to 12-1 for the Gold Cup. Like, if you just rule the run out, and sometimes maybe that can happen. The horses
come into the center of the screen. I can't see you beside the live sign.
Yeah, look, I thought it was a bit overreaction, 12-1. What do you think? Like that's a big old price, isn't it, to drift out to?
He was very, very disappointing. Is it Johnny Deneen now on the up and the ante? What's the words of Johnny? One strike and you're gone. Plutar, I couldn't back him at that price anyway. I tend to agree with those sentiments. Look, it could turn out to be fantastic value, but you genuinely will have to see him bouncing back to form at Christmas.
If he bounced back to form at Christmas, then he's close to favourite again, though, isn't he?
Well, fair play to you. It could be your selection, isn't it? Are you going to put him up this afternoon? We'll have to wait and see. That's, of course, the Ante-Post selections to come. Right, that's the star ratings. Once again, check on screen. Ronan, next section of the show, of course, is the good old tracker horse. Who have you got for us this week, Mr. Golden Groome?
I got a horse, Tony Martin's, the back in form Tony Martin, who I love to see. Obviously, a local trainer to me, well, local from where I used to live in Navan. He's a trim man, Tony Martin. Coming back into form is the great summer on the flat. He's a nice horse there, ran third at Punchestown on Sunday in the 2-6 handicap chase. A horse called Friendly Star. He just came off the bridle a bit just before the straight. I thought he was getting involved in the business end. And just got a bit of pace from coming into the straight, and stayed on strongly then for Peter Carberry up the straight. And I think 3 miles might be his bag, maybe even further in time. Before that, he ran really eye-catching race in Galway. He was beaten by a Favourite Moon, who'd be a handy enough horse on the flat, who'd beaten over hurdles, but he went off miles in front that day, Friendly Star, and it was his first run. He's probably pretty fresh. So that's 2 good runs he's had now for Tony, and I think something like a 3-mile handicap chase down the line could be within his remit. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. Friendly Star.
Interesting. That's one from the Golden Groome. Let me throw definitely 2 into the mix. I think we've mentioned one already. So I do think Deep Cave obviously is a nice horse to keep on side Henry de Bromhead. Finished second, of course, behind Absolute Notions. That's Punchestown at the weekends. The first one to mention, I love these Nicky Richards horses that I love firing into the mix, Ronan Groome. Put up Gigi Vid on last week's show for the tracker. Crystal Glory was a winner for Nicky Richards. Go to Hexham last Wednesday, 3 miles, bottomless ground for the tracker horse that won at 8-13. I think this is a really good horse. He's rated 138 over fences now, and 5 starts over hurdles, 2 wins, and finished 8 lengths behind Hillcrest. You might remember that race at Haydock last year on bottomless ground at Haydock. It was a grade 2. Finished second, only beaten 8 lengths, and then went on to finish 4th behind Gelino Bello. That form, I think, is real decent form to take. This fella's a chaser all over. Just love the way he jumped. Quote from Nicky Richards, he jumped like a cat at them. You know, he's a 3-miler, soft ground. I genuinely think this fella is going to land a big handicap. When this fella goes into handicap chases, he could shape up. He could land at big odds. Crystal Glory, put him in your tracker. I think he's a real nice sort. And the other one to mention, once trained by Nick Gifford in the UK, is a horse called Jungle Pros. She landed the hat trick for Gordon Elliott on Saturday at Punchestown over 3 miles. They were worried about the ground for this horse up after she won on her second start for Elliott. They were worried about the ground in the north. She handled the ground, and you want to see her at the Lions. I don't know, did you see the performance? Jungle Pros. And she's got up a total of 41 pounds now. She got a fair hike. She went up from 109 she got 16 pounds. She went up to 126. Now, the cutoff for the Pertemps Ronan Groome was what last season? Was it 134, I do believe? This horse will have to obviously this horse will have to qualify for the Pertemps, but I think it could be genuinely a Pertemps horse. Jungle Pros for the spring, real improver. Once trained by Nick Gifford. and has gone up a total of £41. She won as she liked, and she could be still very well handicapped, I believe. That's Jungle Pros. Boy Yates having just her 4th start at the weekend for Gordon Elliott. So that's the 3 tracker horses for myself to balance out Ronan's 1. Right, so we're on to the next section of the show, and it is, of course, the big question. We're going to answer 2 questions every single week, Golden Groom, and we got plenty in. Of course, we did put a post up last night. People have been putting their big questions in, and of course, if you haven't done so, question in for next week. We'll pick 2 questions out and answer them on each show. The first question comes in from Rob the Mongoose, Golden Groom. I do believe the Mongoose is a good follower of the show. He's putting comments in quite regularly. So he wants to know, every single week, if you're to put €10 on one horse Ante-Post for the Cheltenham Festival, Golden Groom, who would it be and why? And don't say hi, senor.
It's a good question. This is the way I used to punt when I was Ante-Post when I was very young. I used to pick out a horse each week and try and get as much on as possible, and it was quite exciting. But it inevitably would end in disappointment, like them being a non-runner or something like that.
Like a Savings kitty.
Yes, more or less. I think Frankie Dettori in his autobiography, one of his opening chapters, I think he used to do that with a horse, I recall, and he ended up winning thousands in a side story. Anyways, for the purpose of this thing, if I was to pick one horse that I had to go in every week, I was thinking about it, and I think, call me sentimental, but I think I'd go Honeysuckle. I just think out of all the prices there now, that's the shortest one that's kind of looking at me and going, that's just a bit, fitting well she goes for that race. First of all, that's what you need with this sort of bet. If you're going to do a kitty type of bet, you need the horse to be certainly going for that race. You can't be picking a Mullins thing that might have 3 different options at the festival. You need a horse that's going right there for that race. She's obviously going to go there if she's fit. She's going to be odds on every time she runs in Ireland. So every chance she goes there with the 2 wins. She goes the normal route she is. Henry says she's in flying form. And I just subscribe to the general opinion that, firstly, Constitution Hill could be a freak, could be brilliant, but I think he's getting to the overhyped stage now where, everything was set up for him to produce that performance in the Supreme. But who's to say that Honeysuckle wouldn't have done the exact same, granted the same conditions in the race? They didn't obviously go as fast in the Champion Hurdle. Like, the idea that Honeysuckle would have finished 3rd in the Supreme is absolutely bonkers on times. You can't take the direct comparison there. So I think Honeysuckle, she's been there and done it, and Constitution Hill, I just generally think, people might think that's a bit bland way to look at it, but I think that the young and up-and-coming horse always has to go and prove it, and you're getting a much bigger price with Honeysuckle, who's obviously done it. She's 16 races unbeaten. She's a dual champion hurdler. I think she's the one still to beat in March, and I could definitely see her going off shorter than 72 anyway. So that'd be the one for me.
Yeah, genuinely, this is not messing around here. The one I'm going to put up. It is an urge. 9-4, 7 from 8 over fences. I don't know why you're laughing. 7 from 8. Look, we put him up last year 9-2. The year before we put him up for the Arc at 40-1, and they laughed back then. 7 from 8 over fences. He's an 8-year-old. He'd just be 9. The one question about him last season was what, Ronan Groome? About an urge last season. Okay, I'll answer it for you. The one question mark was Cheltenham. He'd never been to Cheltenham. Yeah, the Cheltenham factor. Not only do we know he handles Cheltenham, we also know this season that he's ground versatile and he can be ridden anyway. So you're riding from the front, you're riding behind. He's a non-complicated horse. For me, he's the best horse in training. Genuinely, take him to beat Allaho every single day of the week over any trip. That's an urge. And that's who I would back, 9-4. Look at the market in behind. How could anyone back Shishkin at that current price? One strike and you're out, as Johnny Deneen says. I just couldn't see how anyone would want to get stuck in. You obviously put up Gentleman to Me. That's an absolute howler. Early on in the show, you put your first selection, Gentleman to Me. For me, look, he fingers crossed, stays sound, gets to Cheltenham in the same form, and he's going to take a hell of a lot of beating. 9-4, that's the one for me, Mr. Rob the Mongoose. There you go. So, next section of the show, Ronan Groome. That's the 2 questions for this week. Get them in for next week. Next section of the show is, of course, going to be the portfolio spotlight. Now, we're just 2 weeks in. So what we said we'd do this week, we had 49 entries last week. We had another, I think, 20 on top of that in week 2. So get your portfolio, the template is below, get your selections in, and of course be in with a chance. On the eve of Cheltenham Groome, Ronan Groome is going to put his sensible eyes over those portfolios on the eve of Cheltenham, and that the healthiest looking portfolio, of course, is going to be given that €500 worth of a Cheltenham Festival hamper on the eve of Cheltenham. So get your select, not too late. We're still taking entries, Ronan Groome. Still time to get involved in that. Looking at some of the portfolios, I did want to highlight a few and have the 2 names written down that I want to discuss. One was Alex Mansfield from Manchester. And interesting selections here from Alex. Here we go, have it in front of me. Manila Cocooner for the Turners at 18-1. Discuss quickly. That was his week 1 selection.
This is getting my Manilas right here. This is Cocooner. This is for the Turners, which is interesting.
For the Turners, 18-1.
Yeah, interesting. Possibly could go Brown Advisory.
The nice guy coming out would make you slightly worry. I thought the way he raced last season, dropping back and trip over a fence would really suit him. Willie loves those strong staying 2.5 milers over the 2.5 distance at Cheltenham. That's what I would. So I would marginally favour the Turners personally when it comes to that horse, and I think he, obviously have to see him over a fence, but he looks tailor made for it, doesn't he?
Possibly, yeah. I guess so. You want to see him first. It was good last year. I thought he probably got the run of the race when he won 11% last year, given a brilliant ride by Danny Mullins. So we'll see.
After Cheltenham, after that Albert Bartlett, I mean, the one thing I would say about Manila Cocooner, he was up there. The nice guy came from off the pace. It was a really strong run race. Manila Cocooner was up there from start to finish. And I think he could really mark up his performance. Anyone else that was up handy in that Albert Bartlett finished out the back of the television. He didn't. And I think he could really mark up his performance in the Albert Bartlett. So I do like that a lot. He went and urged me, obviously, for the champion chase. Don't need to discuss that anymore. 94 solid selection. And the other one I wanted to mention was Shane Tracy from County Mayo. Hopefully he can do better than the footballers. But he's got a high senior at 25-1, Mr. Groome.
Believe, don't give up. I'm not like your one strike and you're out. I'm a more forgiving type, and you generally should be a forgiving type when it comes to horses, because they are 4-legged animals running around the field, jumping obstacles. So don't worry about it. Sometimes horses will have off days, and they come back all the time. So I wouldn't give up on that at all. Definitely don't tear up any sort of docket anyway.
Okay. His week 1 selection, I know we're going backwards here, but Gentleman's Game for Mouse Morris. He was that one was in there at 33-1 for the Brown Advisory. We know Mouse likes a good RSA type. Brown Advisory now, obviously. This horse is 2 from 8 over hurdles. Last seen when finishing 3rd at the Punchestown Festival in a Grade 1 to Classical Dream. Discuss.
Yeah, he always say shaped like he'd be a better chaser. I love Mouse when he gets a good horse, a good Cheltenham horse, because he's shown before he can do it. War of Attrition, obviously, first lieutenant. We wait to see what he can do over Fenter's Gentleman's Game, but he's shaped like that would be his game eventually. So
and he's going chasing. He's going chasing. And do you know what? Funny enough, there's a new podcast. I don't know, did you watch it? It's called We're Going Chasing, and Rob Atchison, the owner of Robcore, was actually on the podcast, and he put this horse up as his horse to follow for the season.
Yeah, James, who I work with here in this office, is a colleague of mine, is involved in the We're Going Chasing podcast. So we wish them the best of luck with.
Absolutely, it was a great show. Actually, enjoyed it. So that's that, Ronan Groome. That is the portfolio spotlight. We will be obviously looking in more depth at portfolios as we go through the series. Just very quickly to recap on our own selections. Week 1 for me, 12-1, Dysart Dynamo for the Arkle. We haven't seen him yet. Cannot wait to see him over a fence, especially over 2 miles. Think he's going to be electric. I'm not afraid of John Bunn anyway at this stage. I think Dysart Dynamo does a big argument out there that he probably would have beaten him in the Supreme if he'd have stayed in his 4 legs. The other selection for myself is Scarlet and Dove. I'm not going to dwell on this. I thought the run was fine. She came on for it last season. I think she took a good blow. put her in a 10. She's still available at 10s. I'm still happy on that, being honest with you. It's not, that's still very much alive. She always comes on for her first run. Your two selections, Gentleman to me, and the second selection, Beauport. Could we see Beauport this week?
I actually forgot to check. It was Ian at Newbury. That was initially the plan for him. I still like
not
him.
much development.
Not much development, really. Yeah, so we'll wait and see what happens. I have a nice one now coming up by my selection this week. It's probably my most confident one so far at the prices. So looking forward to brandishing that.
Fantastic. Well, sure, let's get on with it then, will we?
Yes, sir.
Off you go.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Echoes and Rain. I'm going to back her for the Mayor's Hurdle. Just a couple of things to note. She was going to run in the Morgiana this year, and it's interesting that Willie Mullins' kind of comments last week. Now, it was funny the way it kind of worked out. Willie saying he's going to run all 6 of them and then only running 3 of them, and kind of got a bit of a laugh out of that because no one really believed that Willie was going to run all 6 of them. But in his comments that was initially launched in the it was Tuesday when the entries came out, he was talking about Echoes and Rain, and he was wondering possibly would the trip be a bit short for her. Now, that is in direct contrast to last year, where she was a real free-going mare and ran the race off herself, basically, in the Morgiana, and was too keen. On the flat this season, she's really, really improved. She won the big amateur handicap at Galway over 2 miles, and she ran a huge race in the extremely valuable Irish Desire, which now she was huge there. To run in those races, to run that sort of race, you have to be able to settle and finish out your race. She's doing that now. I think the only race for her at Cheltenham now is 2.5 miles. I think she 2.5 miles for the Mayor's Hurdle. I think she possibly will run in the Hatton's Grace now, which is obviously 2.5 miles. She runs well there. She'll probably have one of the best form lines going into the festival. She didn't run too badly in the race last season. 12 to 1, I just thought was a big price. She's a really high quality mare. She's into triple figures now in the flat. And she's shown she's a grade 1 winner over hurdles already as well. I like her a lot. 12 to 1 for the Mayor's Hurdle.
It wouldn't put you off that whatsoever. Loved her run, as you said. She's really improved on the flat and could be a better horse this season. So, only thing I would say with the Mayor's Hurdle at this point in time is it does look really competitive. The ones at the top of the market, could we see Epatante moving up to 2.5 miles? Obviously, last year's winner, Marie's Rock, I think she's a cracking mare. Love Envoy, Brandy Love, obviously. So, but yeah, Echoes and Rain, I could not knock that selection, Mr. Groome. So the very best of luck to you with that one. And that's not being condescending.
Why does it always sound condescending?
No, it doesn't. No, I would give that a lively chance. Willie Mullins then is the team of the show, Ronan Groome, because I'm getting my second Willie Mullins horse into the team sheet at this point in time. I'm looking down through each and every one of the races. We played the Arkle, we've played the Mayor's Chase, and now it's the time of, there's no better time in my view to get in the Gold Cup, Mr. Groome. And it's been my selection for quite some time, as you know. I don't know what that sound was, but I'm playing Statler. I've taken 20 to 1 for the Gold Cup. I'm going to get him in. 3 from 3 over fences. As you well know, I fell in love with him after the National Hunt Chase last season. I thought this season, what will Run Wild Fred do? I'm not entirely sure, but he beat him so convincingly in that National Hunt Chase with his ears pricked last season. Going into Cheltenham, obviously Run Wild Fred was a consistent every day of the week 159 rated chaser with so much more experience going into Cheltenham. The way Statler beat him in that National Hunt Chase last season, for me, just really stood out. Was the performance for me of the whole meeting, with a view to Cheltenham 2023. He's 3 from 3 now over fences. He jumps like a horse that could potentially go back and trip if they wanted. Big, long, leggy sort that's only going to mature. Stat for you, he'll obviously be 8 with the turn of the year. 7 of the last 10 winners of the Gold Cup were actually aged 8. Willie Mullins obviously has broke the duct. Looking at the top of the market, this is why I'm playing now. that's a big negative for me at Plutard, the way he ran. Obviously, we know the record of winners of the Gold Cup going back to defend it is quite poor. He's obviously not any younger now going into this season. That last year as well, in fairness, it was a great display, but did it turn into a bit of a sprint last season? I think this year there's going to be, with some of the horses that are in the market at this point in time, it could be a much stronger run race. This could be a real test this season. Statler's going to stay all day. And I suppose looking at the top of the market, obviously you have doubts around Gallop and Deschamps getting the trip. Well, I would anyway, certainly. For me, with Allaho, doubts about Allaho. Could you see Gallop and Deschamps, as we discussed on last week's show, going back in trip? He's 7-1 available for the Ryanair. Would that surprise me? No. At Plutard is obviously a worry. Coming down the list then for the Gold Cup, you're into your Protectorats, your Brave Man's Games, your Laham Presses. Statler for me is a horse at a mega price at 20-1. This is the only race he's going to go in. And I'm really hoping that he's going to end up a Grade 1 3-mile horse in the spring. So I'm playing him now. I think now's the time to do it. 20-1 Statler. He goes in at a big old juicy price. Sure, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Like the video, always helps. And we'll be back. Obviously, this week it's going to be published on Tuesday afternoon. This will be recorded next Monday, so we'll be back to the Mondays. And really enjoyed this episode, Ronan. We had so much to discuss, and it's really hotting up. Finally, before we go, want to ask you 2 questions. One, who's your World Cup team? And secondly, have you any bets that you're looking forward to this week at this present moment of time?
Back to Spain for the World Cup. So we haven't seen them yet. We'll see what happens. France are playing as we speak, so we'll see them. And have I had any bets? I have done. I backed Fiddler on the Roof for the Coral Gold Cup on Saturday. He's only £5 higher than last year when he came 28 lengths clear with Cloudy Glen. A huge run. I thought it was a kind of weird. I can't explain the run of the winner there, Cloudy Glen. He didn't do much after that, but they finished 28 lengths clear. And he's only £5 higher. And again, horses for courses. I think that's really good form around Newbury. So I could see him running really well again.
Could we have the old Hennessy Tri-Town Chase double? Because I'm going to put one up in the Tri-Town Chase. Haven't backed it yet, but as soon as I get this video up, maybe before we get it up, we might have a slice on Velvet Elvis, 20-1 chalked up, Mr. Groome, for the Tri-Town Chase. Of course, he was a winner at Navan last season, back in March, 12th of March, won a handicap chase off an official mark of 133. Bigger, older, stronger horse, £10 higher. Ran a cracker in the Irish National. I think Navan Tri-Town Chase Day has to have been the plan, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's an Navan winner as well, I guess. A local trainer. Yeah, 20-1 sounds big enough if they're working back from that. So yeah, I vouch for you there.
Looking forward to it. We'll be back next Monday. And of course, Thursday's show. Do tune in. Get your selections in below.
Inside the final 150 yards, this is a special year. And it's a Hattons for the break. And it's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2-mile novices. Energumen by a romping 10-12.